Hi guys, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I'll be showing you how to make this embroidered quilt label and how to attach it seamlessly to the front of your almost finished quilt. So if that's something you're interested in, just stay tuned. Now I do use Hatch embroidery software, and I've just created my design that I would like on my embroidery patch. Just use a varieties of fonts. I quite like the simple running stitches which sort of mimic hand stitching. So all I'll do is get my hoop ready, and I use sticky back stabilizer, but you can use either tear or cutaway stabilizer, but I would recommend using spray adhesive with that. I like to put some quilt batting behind my quilt label just to give it a little bit of extra padding. So I'm just doing that here. I'll lay that down first, and here is just a square that I've folded into a triangle, so it's double layered. And I will spray some temporary spray adhesive just to stop any shifting whilst I'm doing the machine embroidery. I would advise that you iron your fabric before the embroidery, just because sometimes ironing embroidered pieces can cause a little bit of shrinkage and puckering. So all I'm going to do is just attach all of those layers and pin it in place. I choose to use what they call the floating method when it comes to embroidery, rather than the traditional hooping. All you want to do is make sure you've got enough space for your embroidery design, because obviously that's in a triangle, so you just want to make sure there's enough room at the top and the bottom of the hoop. Sorry, the video's going a little bit too fast to what I can keep up. But just go over to your embroidery machine and position everything. Now I have a Brother 6 needle embroidery machine, but that is by no way necessary. You can use any type of embroidery machine. I just have this for my business, and it comes in quite handy for this type of job. That stitched out, I think it was about 17 minutes. So there, that's how it looks. And I'll just go ahead and remove all of the pins, because there is some just fine tuning that you need to do before you're ready to attach it. So you see these little jump stitches here. I like to trim those on the front, and the work is still completely secure. So I'll just use these, I think they're called double pointed scissors or something like that. They've got a nice curving that makes it really easy. And they're very sharp, so you can just get in there and snip all of the little stitches away. I don't do all of them, just the ones that look like they're in the wrong place. You will have quite a bit of lint after you've done that, so I like to lint roll that all off just to keep the design looking fresh. And then I'm just going to remove it from the frame. Depending on which stabilizer you've used, your process of removing this will look a little bit different. But I just like to pop it out from the back rather than just tearing it from the front. And then I'm just removing all of the excess stabilizer. I don't go in with too much of a fine tooth comb. I just pull out the bigger pieces just because I feel that it leaves an impression on the front and you can feel it when it's still there. Now we need to trim away the excess stabilizer, so I'm just trimming that very slightly shorter than the actual label itself, maybe just by 1/4 of an inch, just so you can stitch it down really nicely, so you can see it. Not too neat, you know, it doesn't need to be, it will all be hidden. And then you just do the same on the corners, and then you're ready to attach. I've already done all of my binding up until this one corner, so I'm just going to position the patch where necessary. I did want it a little bit higher where that quilt line is, but I didn't leave enough space from where I've already attached the binding. So just find the position that suits you, and then I like to just hold it all in place just with the quilting safety pins, the bent ones. You can hand tack it in place as well if you wanted to. And then I'm just going to trim away any excess. When you're making your label, it's always better to make it bigger than you think in terms of having excess hanging over the edge, because then you've got a lot more room to play with on the position of when you attach it to the quilt. So that's just very roughly trimmed down. Don't forget, everything's going to be encased with the binding, so just make sure you can still get your binding around with you know, the thickness of the quilt label. And all I'm going to do here is just tack the quilt label in place. All of this will be hidden, so it doesn't need to be too neat, but you're just holding the edging in place. And you want to make sure that you do this running stitch within the line of where you've attached your binding by machine. So now you've done that, we're just going to go on to hand sewing the very top of the quilt label in place, and we just do this with the same stitch that you use to attach your binding on by hand. I'm having a bit of difficulty getting the knot buried into the quilt there, but yeah, you just I think it's an applique stitch. You just go along and you stitch all of that in place. You could use matching thread, but I found that with my white gingham you couldn't really see the stitches too much anyway. So just carry on all along. You don't want to pull it too tight. I think I did pull it a little bit too tight there at the beginning, but you just want to have a nice little bit of tension, and because otherwise it will pucker. Now at this edge I did have to let the quilt label out a little bit because it had bunched up and it was pulling the backing of the quilt, so I've just eased it out, and that raw edge will still be caught in the binding. And that's how that looks, almost seamless. And you can go ahead and take out all of the safety pins at this point. I just find that's a little bit easier when it comes to do the binding. Your thread isn't getting all stuck around the safety. And then once you've finished stitching the top of the label, you can then go on to finishing your binding, and you just sew the binding on in the exact same way. But all I would say is you want to go a little bit deeper, because don't forget you've got the material from the label, you've got the wadding from the label, and then you've got the quilt backing. So you just want to go a bit deeper so that you catch all of those layers, making your label a little bit more secure. As long as you don't go through onto the front, that will be completely seamless, and as you can see from that little clip, it's all just seamless. And there's your finished quilt label. Now this has been quite a quick video, so if there's any other part of the process that you would like to see in more detail, just leave me a comment in this video. But thank you so much for watching.